The alien ship appeared in Earth's orbit like a silver tear against the black of space. It was beautiful in a way that hurt to look at, all flowing curves and surfaces that seemed to ripple like water, even though they were solid metal. The ship sent out distress signals on every frequency humans knew about, and several they didn't. Ambassador Kira Voss stepped off the transport shuttle with movements that seemed too graceful for the artificial gravity of the space station. Her skin was pale blue and slightly see-through, like looking at someone through clear ocean water. Her large eyes were the color of deep sea, and they held a terror that needed no translation. She had been traveling for 3 months to reach Earth. Her people were dying, and humans were their last hope. Admiral Jack Stone waited for her in the main conference room of Luna Station. He was a big man with gray hair and scars on his hands from the old wars on Mars. Next to him sat General Lisa Hayes, smaller but with eyes that missed nothing. Both wore their dress uniforms, but anyone who knew them could see they were thinking about battle plans. The translator device on the table hummed to life as Kira began to speak. Her voice came out in perfect English, but with an odd echo that made it sound like she was speaking from underwater. Admiral Stone, General Hayes, thank you for seeing me. My people, the Zilani Confederation, are facing complete extinction. We have perhaps 4 weeks before our core worlds fall. She touched a control on her wrist and a hologram appeared above the table. It showed a map of local space, with red markers spreading like a disease across star systems. This is the Vorth Swarm. They appeared in our territory 8 months ago. They are not like other species. They do not want territory or resources or power. They want to consume everything. The hologram zoomed in on one of the red markers. What they saw made both humans lean forward. The Vorth ships looked like giant sea creatures crossed with machines. They had tentacles that writhed in space, and hulls that pulsed like living hearts. But the worst part was what surrounded them. Those are our worlds, Kira said quietly. Or what used to be our worlds. Where planets should have been, there were only twisted masses of organic matter. The Vorth had consumed the worlds completely and turned them into breeding grounds for more of their kind. Conventional weapons do nothing to them, Kira continued. Their ships adapt to any attack within minutes. Energy weapons make them stronger. Kinetic weapons bounce off hulls that grow thicker after each hit. Nuclear weapons only feed their bioreactors. Admiral Stone studied the hologram with the calm attention of a man who had seen many hopeless situations. How many ships do they have? Our best estimate is 12,000 combat vessels, with more being born every day from the consumed worlds. They move as one mind, one purpose. They have no fear, no hesitation, no mercy. General Hayes leaned back in her chair. What's their next target? Kira's hands trembled as she manipulated the hologram. New red markers appeared, moving toward a cluster of blue dots. Our 3 core systems, Aquatica, Depth Prime, and New Tide. 47 billion souls live in those systems. When the swarm reaches them, the Zilani will cease to exist. The room fell silent, except for the quiet hum of the space station's life support systems. Finally, Admiral Stone spoke. What are you asking from us, Ambassador? Kira straightened, trying to look dignified despite her obvious desperation. We are not asking you to fight for us. We know humans have only recently reached the stars. We would never ask you to face something that has destroyed civilizations far older and more powerful than either of ours. She paused, gathering her courage. We ask only for humanitarian aid, transport ships to evacuate our civilians, medical supplies for the refugees, food synthesizers to keep them alive during the journey to safe space. We can offer much in return. Another hologram appeared, showing technical specifications that made both humans raise their eyebrows. Water purification systems that could make any liquid safe to drink. Quantum computers that could process information faster than anything Earth had built. And most valuable of all, complete star charts of the galaxy's unexplored regions. We offer all of this freely along with our friendship and alliance if you can help save our people. Admiral Stone and General Hayes looked at each other. Something passed between them, some silent communication built from years of working together. Then Stone turned back to Kira. Ambassador will need to discuss this with our leadership. Can you give us 12 hours? Kira nodded eagerly. Of course. I understand this is much to ask. But please remember that time is running out for my people. After Kira left, escorted to guest quarters by diplomatic staff, the two senior officers sat alone in the conference room. The hologram still showed the advancing red markers of the Vorth swarm. She has no idea, does she? General Hayes said finally. Admiral Stone shook his head. None at all. She thinks we're just another young race barely crawling out of our home system. Hayes stood and walked to the viewport that looked out at Earth. The blue and green world hung peaceful in space, but she could see the construction yards in orbit. Massive structures where humanity was building something the galaxy had never seen before. How long have we been tracking the swarm? She asked. 6 months, ever since our deep space monitors picked up the first energy signatures.
The intelligence boys have been studying every scrap of data we can get. And? Stone joined her at the viewport. And they're right about conventional weapons being useless. But they don't know about our unconventional weapons. Far below them.
Earth turned slowly in space. It looked peaceful, harmless even. No one looking at it would guess that this quiet world had spent the last 100 years perfecting the art of war. The Mars Rebellion had taught humanity hard lessons about fighting in space. The Europa mining wars had shown them how to break things that seemed unbreakable. Send the message, Stone said finally. Hayes activated her communication device. A few moments later, a voice answered from the depths of space. Fleet Command, this is General Hayes. Operation Thunderstrike is authorized. Repeat, Operation Thunderstrike is go. The response came back immediately. Understood, General. All fleets are moving to battle stations. Estimated deployment time, 18 hours. As the communication ended, both officers looked once more at the hologram showing the approaching Vorth swarm. Kira had asked for evacuation ships and medical supplies. What she was about to get was something very different, something the galaxy had never seen before, something that would change the rules of war forever. The moment Admiral Stone sent the authorization code, every human military base in the solar system came alive. Alarms rang out across Earth's orbital stations. Lights flashed in the deep space construction yards around Mars. Emergency broadcasts reached the mining colonies of the asteroid belt. Captain Ryan Cole was eating dinner in his quarters aboard the UNS Defiance when the call came. The massive dreadnought was docked at Titan Station for routine maintenance, its crew enjoying some well-deserved rest. That rest ended the second Cole's communication device started screaming priority alerts. All hands to battle stations, Cole announced over the ship's intercom. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. The Defiance was 3 kilometers of death and destruction wrapped in armor plating. It had been built in secret over the past 5 years, using technology that officially didn't exist. Its main guns could punch holes through small moons. Its secondary weapons could level cities. And in its deepest cargo holds, it carried weapons that had never been tested in actual combat. Cole watched through the bridge windows as his crew loaded the experimental railguns. Each weapon was the size of a city bus and used magnetic fields to fire projectiles at a significant fraction of light speed. The projectiles themselves were made from compressed matter that would release tremendous energy on impact. Captain, called his weapons officer, Lieutenant Sam Davis, the new guns are installed and tested. All systems show green. What about the special ammunition? Davis grinned, but it wasn't a pleasant expression. Locked and loaded, sir. Enough firepower to crack a continent. Similar scenes played out across the solar system. At Luna Base, Commander, Amy White received her orders at 0300 hours. She had been expecting them. The 7th Marine Assault Division had been on standby for weeks, ever since intelligence reports started coming in about the Vorth swarm. White's Marines weren't peacekeepers or police. They were veterans of humanity's bloodiest conflicts. Men and women who had learned to fight in the low gravity of Mars during the rebellion. Soldiers who had battled through the ice tunnels of Europa when the mining corporations tried to break away from Earth. Listen up, White told her assembled troops in the main briefing room. We've got a new mission. There's a hostile alien species wiping out entire civilizations. Our job is to make sure they don't wipe out anymore. The Marines looked at each other. They had been wondering when humanity would face its first real alien threat. Now they knew. "What's the enemy's strength?" asked Sergeant Mike Torres, a stocky man with scars covering his arms. 12,000 ships and growing. They adapt to conventional weapons. They turn planets into breeding grounds. White paused. They've never fought humans before. The Marines began to smile. These were not nice smiles. While the military mobilized, Ambassador Kira Voss remained in her quarters on Luna Station. She had been monitoring Earth's communication networks, trying to understand what the humans were planning. The energy readings from their industrial complexes were huge, but she assumed they were building civilian ships. Her translator had been picking up fragments of human military chatter, but most of it made no sense to her. Terms like quantum, disruptors, and matter compression weapons were beyond Zilani understanding. Her people were pacifists who had never developed advanced military technology. She did notice that the humans seemed to be moving with unusual speed. In less than 12 hours, massive ships were undocking from stations throughout the solar system. She counted at least 40 vessels, each one larger than anything in the Zilani fleet. But they had to be cargo ships, she told herself. The humans were preparing to help evacuate her people. The alternative was too impossible to believe. At the edge of the solar system, Admiral Stone stood on the command bridge of the UNS Retribution. The ship was his personal command vessel, built to coordinate large fleet operations. Its communication arrays could reach across half the galaxy. Its sensors could track thousands of targets simultaneously. "Fleet status report," Stone ordered. Colonel Pete Mason, his tactical officer, consulted his displays. 47 ships fully operational and ready for jump. All experimental weapons loaded and tested. Marine transports are loaded with full assault companies. Stone nodded. "What about the science teams?" Dr. Helen Ross and her xenobiology unit are aboard the research vessel Insight. They've been studying every piece of Vorth data we could gather. She says she's found something important. Stone activated his communication system. "Dr. Ross, please report to the bridge." A few minutes later, Dr. Ross arrived. She was a small woman with intense eyes and hands that were always moving. She had spent her career studying alien life forms, but the Vorth were unlike anything she had ever encountered. "Admiral, I've been analyzing the biological samples we recovered from Vorth attack sites. I believe I've found their weakness." She activated a holographic display that showed the molecular structure of Vorth bioarmor. Their adaptation ability is based on quantum-level changes in their cellular structure. They can modify their molecular bonds in response to different types of damage. But they can only adapt to conventional physics. Our new disintegrator weapons don't destroy matter through heat or kinetic force. They alter matter at the quantum level, essentially erasing the target from reality. Stone studied the display. "You're saying our weapons work by changing the rules of physics?" "Exactly. The Vorth can't adapt to something that breaks the fundamental laws they evolved under. To them, our weapons will seem like magic." The Admiral turned to Colonel Mason. "How long until the fleet is ready to jump?" 6 hours, sir. All ships are completing final preparations." Stone looked out at the assembled fleet through the bridge windows. Humanity had spent a century learning how to wage a war. They had fought each other across the solar system, perfecting the art of destruction. Now they would take those lessons to the stars. "Send a message to all ship captains," Stone ordered. "Remind them that we're not going to the Zilani system to defend. We're going there to attack. The Vorth swarm ends with us." As the message went out across the fleet, thousands of human military personnel made final preparations for humanity's first interstellar war. They checked weapons that could rewrite physics. They loaded ammunition that could crack worlds. They prepared for a battle that would change the galaxy forever. None of them knew that in her quarters on Luna Station, Ambassador Kira Voss was sending a hopeful message to her people. The humans were preparing their ships, she reported. Help was coming soon. She had no idea how right she was or how wrong. The Zilani homeworld of Aquatica was a planet of endless oceans and floating cities. Billions of blue-skinned beings lived in structures that rode the waves like giant ships. For the past week, they had been preparing for evacuation. Kira Voss, stood on the highest tower of the capital city, watching the sky through her people's version of binoculars. The human ships should arrive any day now. Her message home had filled the Zilani with hope. Earth was sending help. Below her, millions of Zilani gathered at the floating spaceports. They carried small bags with their most precious belongings. Children clung to their parents, not understanding why they had to leave their home forever. The elderly moved slowly, helped by younger family members. The humans will save us, parents told their children. They are coming with big ships to take us somewhere safe. Above the planet, Zilani Space Traffic Control monitored the edge of their system. Their sensors were old, but reliable. When the human fleet finally arrived, the readings would be impossible to miss. The first sign was a ripple in space itself, then another, then dozens more, as ships dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation. The Zilani sensor operator stared at his screen in confusion. These energy readings were massive, far beyond anything their database could identify. Command, this is Sensor Station Alpha. I'm reading incoming ships, human designation confirmed. But something is wrong. What do you mean wrong? Came the reply from the capital city. Sir, these aren't cargo ships, these aren't transport vessels. These readings suggest heavy military construction. Very heavy. On her tower, Ambassador Kira received the report on her communication device. She felt her blood grow cold. Military ships? That made no sense. The humans had agreed to provide humanitarian aid, not weapons. The lead ship appeared first as the fleet moved into visual range. The UNS Retribution was 4 kilometers of black metal and weapon arrays. Its hull was covered with armor, plating thick enough to stop planet-cracking missiles. Energy signatures poured off it like heat from a star. Behind, it came the rest of the human fleet. 46 more warships, each one built for destruction on a scale the Zilani had never imagined. Gun turrets the size of buildings rotated slowly, tracking possible threats. Launch bays that could hold entire squadrons of fighters gaped like hungry mouths. Captain Ryan Cole sat on the bridge of the UNS Defiance, watching the Zilani world grow larger on his main screen. His ship was loaded with enough firepower to burn continents. His crew was ready for war. Sir, called his communications officer, we're receiving multiple hails from the Zilani government. They seem confused. Cole almost smiled. Put them through. Ambassador Kira's voice came across the communication system, shaky with fear and confusion. Human vessels. This is Ambassador Kira Voss of the Zilani Confederation. We were expecting transport ships. What we're seeing appears to be military vessels. Please explain. Cole looked at Admiral Stone's image on his secondary screen. The Admiral nodded. Ambassador Voss, this is Captain Ryan Cole of the United Nations War Fleet. We received your request for assistance with the Vorth Swarm. We're here to provide it. War Fleet? Kira's voice rose in pitch. Captain, we asked for evacuation ships, not weapons of war. We need to save our people, not fight battles we cannot win. Before Cole could respond, Admiral Stone's voice cut across all communication frequencies. Every Zilani receiver in the system picked up his transmission. This is Admiral Jack Stone, commanding the United Nations War Fleet. All Zilani vessels are ordered to maintain minimum safe distance from our ships. We are here to deal with the Vorth Swarm. Permanently. On Aquatica, panic began to spread through the floating cities. The humans had not come to evacuate them. They had come to fight. But fight what? The Vorth were still weeks away from reaching. Zilani Space Kira activated her emergency communication device and sent a direct message to Admiral Stone's flagship. Admiral, please, I must speak with you. We asked for humanitarian aid, not military intervention. The Vorth Swarm cannot be defeated by conventional weapons. They adapt to everything. Stone's reply came back immediately, his voice calm but carrying an undertone that made veteran Zilani military officers shiver. Ma'am, you asked for help with the Vorth Swarm. We're here to provide it. When humans help their neighbors, we solve problems completely. At the edge of the Zilani system, something was happening. Space itself began to shimmer and twist as massive shapes pushed through from hyperspace. The Vorth had arrived early. The first bioship was the size of a city. Its hull pulsed with bioluminescent patterns, and tentacles longer than skyscrapers writhed in the vacuum of space. Behind it came dozens more, each one a nightmare fusion of living tissue and alien technology. The Vorth had detected the human fleet's arrival and moved to intercept. In their collective consciousness, they felt only hunger. These new ships represented more biomass to consume, more matter to convert into swarm vessels. On the bridge of the Retribution, Admiral Stone watched the Vorth ships appear on his tactical display. Each bioship was massive, but his sensors were telling him something interesting. "Analysis?" he asked his science officer. "Sir, their hulls are definitely organic. Bio-armor that seems to shift and change in real time. But our quantum scanners are reading some unusual energy patterns." Stone nodded. Dr. Ross was right. They're purely biological. They've never encountered weapons that operate outside normal physics. The Vorth began their standard intimidation display. The bioships pulsed brighter, their tentacles weaving hypnotic patterns designed to cause fear in enemy crews. They had never met a species that didn't flee when faced with the full horror of the swarm. On the human ships, crew members watched the display with professional interest. Commander Amy White, aboard the Marine Transport Hammer, studied the alien vessels through her ship's sensors. "Ugly," she commented to her second-in-command. "But big doesn't always mean dangerous." Lieutenant Colonel Dan Parker nodded. "Remember the Mars Rebellion? The corporate ships were twice our size. Didn't help them much when we started shooting." The Vorth finished their intimidation display and began moving toward the human fleet. Their bioships moved like living creatures swimming through space, graceful and terrifying. Admiral Stone activated the fleet-wide communication system. "All ships, this is Admiral Stone. The Vorth swarm is approaching. They're about to learn what happens when they threaten our neighbors." He paused, looking out at the alien ships approaching his fleet. "Weapons free. Show them what human engineering looks like." Across the human fleet, weapon systems that had never been used in combat began powering up. Energy readings spiked as disintegrator cannons charged to full power. Railguns the size of buildings rotated to track their targets. The Zelani watched from their homeworld, trapped between two forces they didn't understand. Behind them was their peaceful civilization, built over thousands of years. Ahead of them was the Vorth swarm, bringing certain death. And between them was humanity's war fleet, about to show the galaxy what humans did to protect their friends. "Ambassador," Kira whispered a prayer to the deep currents as the first human weapons began to fire. The Vorth attack began exactly as it had for the past 8 months across a dozen star systems. The bioships launched clouds of parasitic spores, billions of microscopic organisms designed to eat through enemy hulls and consume the crew from the inside. No species in the galaxy had ever developed defenses against this attack. The spore clouds raced across space toward the human fleet like a dark storm. Each spore was programmed to burrow through any known material and begin converting it into Vorth biomatter. They had consumed entire planets this way. Captain Cole watched the approaching spore cloud on his tactical display. "Point defense systems online," he ordered calmly. "Sir," called Lieutenant Davis from the weapons station. "Spore. Cloud will reach us in 30 seconds. Fire when ready." The UNS Defiance's point defense grid came alive. Instead of conventional lasers or kinetic weapons, the human ship fired focused streams of plasma hot enough to melt steel. But these weren't ordinary plasma beams. They had been modified using technology that Dr. Ross had developed specifically for organic targets. The spores hit the plasma streams and simply vanished. Not destroyed, not burned away, but completely erased at the molecular level. The plasma didn't just kill the organisms. It broke down their atomic structure until nothing remained. Across the human fleet, the same scene played out. Spore clouds that had devoured entire civilizations met defensive systems they couldn't understand. Within minutes, billions of Vorth organisms had been reduced to empty space. On the Vorth command bioship, confusion rippled through the collective consciousness. The spore attack had never failed before. Every species they had encountered fell within hours of the first assault. But these new ships had weapons that made no sense. The Vorth tried their second strategy. The bioships themselves charged forward, planning to ram the human vessels. Their hulls were made of living armor that could absorb incredible amounts of damage and then repair itself. They had crushed fleets by simply flying through them. Admiral Stone watched the massive alien ships accelerate toward his fleet. Each bioship was over 1 kilometer long and covered in writhing tentacles. They looked like something from humanity's worst nightmares. "All ships, maintain formation," Stone ordered. "Let them come to us." The first Vorth bioship struck the UNS Thunder, one of humanity's heavy cruisers. The impact should have crushed the human vessel like an egg. Instead, the bioship's organic hull crumpled against armor plating made from collapsed matter. The Vorth ship bounced off the human vessel like a ball hitting a wall. Captain Sarah Mills, commanding the Thunder, watched her damage reports with satisfaction. No hull breach, no casualties. That tickled a bit. The Vorth collective mind reeled, in shock. Their ramming attacks had never failed before. These human ships were built from materials that shouldn't exist. The bioships tried to wrap their tentacles around the human vessels, but the tentacles simply slid off the smooth, impossibly strong hulls. "Sir," Lieutenant Davis called out from the Defiance's weapons station. "All systems charged and ready, requesting permission to fire main guns." Captain Cole looked at Admiral Stone's image on his communication screen. Stone nodded once. "Fire at will," Cole ordered. The UNS Defiance's main railgun fired its first shot in combat. The projectile was a rod of compressed matter accelerated to 20% of light speed. It struck the nearest Vorth bioship dead center. The result was spectacular. Instead of punching a hole through the organic hull, the projectile released all its energy at once. The bioship didn't explode, it disintegrated. One moment it was there, the next moment it was a cloud of scattered atoms expanding into space. Across the human fleet, similar weapons opened fire. Railguns that could crack moons sent projectiles into the Vorth formation. Energy cannons that operated outside normal physics carved through bioships like knives through paper. But the most devastating weapons were the disintegrator beams that Dr. Ross had helped design. These weapons didn't destroy their targets. They simply made them stop existing. Where the beams touched Vorth bioships, matter ceased to be. Perfect circles of nothingness appeared in the organic hulls, and the ships collapsed around the empty spaces. The Vorth tried desperately to adapt. Their bio-armor began changing, trying to find some defense against the human weapons. But there was nothing to adapt to. The human weapons broke the fundamental rules that Vorth evolution was based on. It was like trying to adapt to having reality itself turned off. Commander Amy White watched the battle from the Marine transport Hammer. Her assault troops were ready to board enemy ships if needed, but it was becoming clear that wouldn't be necessary. "Ma'am," called Sergeant Torres, "the aliens are trying to retreat." White looked at her tactical display. The surviving Vorth bioships were indeed turning away from the human fleet, trying to escape back into hyperspace. There were less than half of them left. "Admiral Stone," White called over the communication system, "requesting permission to pursue." Stone's voice came back immediately. "Negative, Commander, let them run. We want survivors to spread the word about what happened here." The battle, if it could be called that, lasted exactly 17 minutes. The Vorth swarm that had consumed 12 star systems and billions of lives had been reduced to scattered debris and fleeing survivors. Not one human ship had taken serious damage. On Aquatica, the Zilani watched in stunned silence. Their sensors had recorded the entire engagement. The humans hadn't just defeated the Vorth, they had made the defeat look easy. Weapons that had seemed unstoppable had been brushed aside like toys. Ambassador Kira activated her communication device with trembling hands. "Admiral Stone, this is Ambassador Voss. The swarm, they're retreating. How is this possible?" Stone's reply was calm, almost casual. "Ma'am, the Vorth evolved to fight biological species using conventional physics. They never developed defenses against weapons that rewrite the basic rules of matter and energy." But Kira could hear something else in the Admiral's voice. A cold satisfaction that made her realize the battle wasn't over. Admiral, surely this is enough. You've driven them away from our worlds. The threat is ended. There was a long pause before Stone replied. When he spoke, his words chilled every Zilani who heard them. Ma'am, driving them away isn't the same as solving the problem. Dr. Ross has been tracking their biosignatures. We know where they came from. We know where their breeding grounds are located. Kira felt her heart sink. What are you saying? I'm saying we're going to follow them home. The Vorth swarm ends today. Permanently. Across the human fleet, navigation. Computers began calculating jump coordinates for systems that had been avoided by galactic civilization for centuries. The Vorth had made one critical mistake. They had threatened humanity's neighbors. Now they were going to learn what happened when humans decided to solve a problem completely. Admiral Stone gave the order that would echo through galactic history. All ships prepare for hyperspace jump. We're going to finish what they started. 3 weeks later, Ambassador Kira Voss sat in the council chambers of Aquatica, staring at a message that had arrived from Admiral Stone. The human fleet had been gone for 21 days, chasing the Vorth swarm across the galaxy. No one knew what had happened to them. The message was short and simple. The Vorth swarm has been eliminated, all breeding grounds destroyed, threat level 0. Earth considers this matter closed. Attached to the message were sensor readings and battle reports that made the Zilani leadership question everything they thought they knew about warfare. The humans hadn't just defeated the swarm. They had hunted it across 17 star systems, following the fleeing bioships back to their home territory. Council leader Mara Depths, the oldest and wisest of the Zilani, read the reports with growing amazement. These readings show complete sterilization of the Vorth home systems. Not just the military forces, but every breeding ground, every spawning pool, every trace of their civilization. Kira nodded slowly. The humans didn't just win the war. They made sure there would never be another war. The reports told a story that would become legend throughout the galaxy. The human fleet had arrived in Vorth space and found a nightmare. 17 systems had been turned into massive breeding complexes. Planets had been consumed and converted into living factories that produced bioships by the thousands. The Vorth had felt safe in their home territory. They had never been followed home before. Most species that survived their attacks were too damaged to think about revenge. But humans, it seemed, thought differently about such things. Admiral Stone had divided his fleet into assault groups and attacked all 17 systems simultaneously. The battle report showed engagements that lasted days, with human ships systematically destroying everything the Vorth had built over millions of years. The disintegrator weapons had been particularly effective against the breeding grounds. Entire planets that had been converted into Vorth biofactories were reduced to empty space. The quantum technology didn't just destroy the organic matter, it erased it from existence, leaving behind sterile systems that would take millions of years to recover. But the most disturbing part of the reports was how methodical the humans had been. They hadn't attacked in anger or revenge. They had approached the extermination of the Vorth with the same calm efficiency they might use to solve any other problem. They treated it like a pest control operation, whispered Council Member Tide. Runner, complete elimination, no survivors, no possibility of the problem returning. Kira activated her communication device and sent a request to meet with Admiral Stone one final time before the human fleet departed for Earth. She needed to understand what kind of species humanity really was. The meeting took place aboard the UNS Retribution in Admiral Stone's private office. The room was simple and functional, with star charts covering the walls and models of human warships displayed on shelves. Stone himself looked exactly the same as he had 3 weeks ago, showing no signs of the massive campaign he had just completed. Admiral, Kira began carefully, my people are grateful for what you've done, but we must ask. We requested evacuation ships. Why did you bring a war fleet? Stone leaned back in his chair and considered the question. When he spoke, his voice was matter-of-fact, as if he was explaining something obvious. Ambassador, when someone threatens our neighbors, we don't evacuate. We eliminate the threat. It's more efficient that way. Kira struggled to understand. But the cost, the resources, Surely it would have been easier to simply help us escape. Would it? Stone asked. If we had evacuated your people, the swarm would still exist. They would have consumed your worlds and grown stronger. Eventually, they would have found Earth. Then we would have had to fight them anyway. But they would have been much more powerful. He stood and walked to a star chart on the wall. This way, we solved the problem permanently. The Vorth will never threaten anyone again. Your people can. Go home. And the galaxy is safer for everyone. Kira realized she was seeing something that her peaceful species had never encountered before. Humans didn't just react to threats, they eliminated them completely. It wasn't cruelty or bloodthirst, it was simply how they solved problems. What happens now? She asked. Stone returned to his desk and picked up a data pad. Now you honor the agreement your people made. The star charts, the technology transfers, the alliance treaty. We kept our part of the bargain. Kira nodded quickly. Of course. Everything we promised is yours. But Admiral, may I ask what you plan to do with those star charts? Stone's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes made Kira's blood run cold. We're going to explore the galaxy, Ambassador. Meet new species, make new friends. He paused, looking directly at her. And if we find anyone else who thinks they can threaten peaceful civilizations, we'll solve that problem too. After Kira left, Admiral Stone remained in his office, reviewing reports from his fleet commanders. The Vorth campaign had been a complete success, but it had also been a test. Humanity's first major military operation beyond their home system had proven that their weapons and tactics were effective against alien threats. More importantly, it had sent a message to anyone else who might be watching. Captain Cole appeared on Stone's communication screen. Admiral, the fleet is ready to depart for Earth. All ships report mission complete. Any casualties? Stone asked. 7 minor injuries during the loading operations. No combat casualties. No ships lost. Stone nodded. 47 human warships had eliminated a threat that had consumed entire civilizations, and they hadn't lost a single person in combat. The galaxy was about to learn what human military efficiency looked like. Send a message to all inhabited systems within 50 light years, Stone ordered. Standard diplomatic package. Let them know Earth is open to peaceful contact and trade, agreements. And if they're not peaceful, sir? Stone looked out the viewport at the empty space where the Vorth homeworld used to exist. Then they'll learn the same lesson the swarm learned. As the human fleet departed Zelani space, automated monitoring stations began broadcasting throughout the galaxy. The message was simple and direct. Earth protects its friends. The Vorth swarm attempted to harm our allies and has been permanently eliminated. Other civilizations should choose their actions accordingly. Within months, the story of humanity's first contact with alien threats had spread across the galaxy. Species that had never heard of Earth suddenly knew exactly where it was and what its people were capable of. Trade requests and alliance offers began arriving at human space stations. But there were also other messages. Warnings passed between criminal organizations and aggressive species. Stay away from human space. Don't threaten their allies. 3. Species from the small blue planet didn't negotiate with enemies. They eliminated them. On Aquatica, Ambassador Kira stood once again on the highest tower of the capital city. But now she wasn't watching for rescue ships. She was watching her people return to their homes, knowing they were safe under the protection of humanity's friendship. The age of human diplomacy had begun, and it came with a very simple message. Earth would help its friends and destroy its enemies. The galaxy would never be the same.